It's September 11th, 2022. We went to Zion Episcopalian earlier today. Today was kick-off Sunday. Sign up for Sunday school. Again, I'm having trouble because I did not find my fellow that I needed. It's just like chasing the wind. So, brought Nucci to fellow or fellowship, some form of community, looks semblance to what I'm used to in ELF. I don't even have a reality to speak on what Zion is here so close to the city in Zos 2022. It's not even, I sat, there was the pastor who looks like he's Scandinavian and then there's whatever there is in what is available and wants to fellow with one another here, and however that community and fellow works. Then there was the social after today where I got to meet other people, and it's a world of, for lack of a better term, Meghan Markle's and Harry's. It looks like Harry Carey. I mean, in where my fellowship began with the names of what I went to fellow with, or fellowship with, and then at the societal whatever, there was somebody at the table, and he informs me that the Episcopalian Church was started by Henry the Eighth, I think he said. And I'm like, of course, my ears, I'm like, Henri l'Ancien, Notre Dame. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I'm listening. And so he says it's Church of England. I'm like, right, I've heard that version before. In Henri. This one has adornments of, or remnants of, IHS from when, I guess, a time where Manhattan was New Amsterdam and everything looked as it should. Now that it's under something Manhattan, the Isle of Man, it is really messy. And I don't know how to stay safe. The people, the congregants were very nice to my face. I don't know what they say behind my back, as usual. But sitting at that table, in my preferring a fellowship more like, to use a London verse, but I prefer to have found a fellow and walked in a fellowship looking more like a relationship between William and Kate, but that's not my cup of tea. Just, I never wanted to walk ever as Harry and the other one, the Meghan. Just to be crystal clear on names that people are familiar with. That by itself is not a sin. That is a personal preference. I made that very clear early on when I was placed in Cold Spring Harbor's hands, or Lloyd Harbor's hands, the person who came to visit looked more like fellowship that I was interested in and what I wanted to be pursued by, in looking the correct. Not that I wish ill anybody who walks as Meghan and Harry do. It's just not who I am. It's not where I'm comfortable, and I don't want my children to ever have to walk that way. I just don't. Um, so, with that being said, there was somebody at the table that introduced himself. I know what his name is. I know what we talked about. He said his wife, who I also saw what she looked like. None of this looks like New Amsterdam, might I add. This looks like a mercantile exchange program years in the future with very little attendance of maintenance crew of whatever. And again, I get the reaches, the outreach, the missions, I mean, on one level, I get that, but what I don't understand is I am not of a POS. I'm not. I am an NEG, and it puts my life in danger for someone to play some foul game and try to concubine or ruin me and my body and my life with mixing my NEG with a POS. It's a health risk. It's a health hazard, and then it has reputational consequences, which I know some people use that as a strategy to maim and wound and whatever, for whatever the disgusting does in whatever disgusting game they play. Being on hallowed ground, I suppose today's event could be spoken of as hellhounds. The people that walk these lands after some previous king's death and some mercantile evolution into the changing of the guards, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. I don't really know how to verse it properly. If I was speaking to number 11 from that meeting that I had with Twinning and he on a special birthday that I didn't know was happening, in however Thor becomes Thor for Thors Day, without angering anyone, and it's just, how do you explain your own story and what your own preferences are in a singularity, in a monotheistic way, not in a polytheistic way, not to upset the gods of the oligarchs. Today they spoke on Doxology. I liked having a new word. I thought that was really, I mean, that's part of the fellowship. And then of course I think back to Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship of the Rings, or the Fellowship of the Ring. That was interesting as I sit here now. I remember in Catholic school, I spoke to the man. He goes by, he said, he gave me his real name, but then he gave me a nickname. I being Nick, I belonging to Nicky. I'm in the lands, hallowed or not, of Saint Nick in this territory, regardless of whatever. There is a layer of protection under Saint Nick. My father introduced himself as Brother Claus for that purpose, or Santa Claus's brother. There is something in history that the Catholics taught me about when I went to seek out their direction. They uniformed me. They put me in a classroom named Theology. Didn't know what that was. I was very interested in it, though. I don't really have much memory. I spoke to the man at the table. He uses a nickname as my grandfather Clifford did for some reason. I don't know who gave him the nickname or who allows him to go by that nickname, but my grandfather used the same nickname for whatever legion my grandfather Clifford was associated with. I don't know. He's my Purple Heart representative who died, and I never got to know. So this man was at the table. He said his wife was warden. I met somebody else. He said he was on the board of the church. I thought that was interesting. I don't know how these things work. I, of course, was there because I don't know what to do with my son or the last one. I don't know what his future's going to look like. I know how sick I'm getting. I worry about how long I have. I'm also worried about the money running out. Not that I have any, but I don't know what Linda and Lou have. And I don't even know if it'll last me my life. I came home and Linda is watching something that the Hollywood crew put on. I call them Hollywood, but then I know there's an umbrella with a handle of Hollywood, and then there's the TV producer land, and then the movie studio. They made sure that I knew in A Hole in Time and Space that there is a clear difference. They do not want to be associated with one another with whatever's going on. So there's a distinct difference, and I guess that has something to do with T-Frio 1975 looking like Brad Pitt from the Bullet Train with that greasy, although Brad Pitt's hair didn't look greasy, but T-Frio's did. And it's interesting, just before the UA $3 movie with the $5 or the AMC movie day on United Artists and how American Movie Company or whatever that is, that I couldn't even get to. And I wasn't going to go see Bullet Train. I saw the coming attraction. I was like, that's a Tia Frio reference. With whatever he's got going on. Tia Frio then mentions Brad Pitt's going around wearing a leather skirt. I'm like, is it a kilt? He goes, no. My mom told him it was a leather skirt. I'm like, right, yeah, okay, enough on whatever and whatever. So, I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I got a call from Zia while I was there. We were outside. The sermon had just ended. They had a new playground, which was really nice. Anthony played, as usual. He's cordial to everybody. I mean, I encourage respect of human and humanity face to face. You don't have to have lifelong relationships or friendships, but when you're in the presence of one of God's creatures, you damn well better respect them and not put your hands anywhere on them. And that is how he lives, and that's how I've lived. Same that I would want them not to put their hands on me and not to whatever if it's not an invitation. So he was playing with one of the little girls that was his age. I walked the Hallow with him. They have a bees keep. They went over there. We walked, and again, I don't know in a graveyard. I was not taught the etiquette of, I think I was at one point, but I have had so much head trauma. I can't remember the graveyard etiquette any longer. So, as we're walking through the rain, through the graveyard to the other end of the Hallow, where the bees were being kept, just to look at them with our eyes, Anthony, our eyes only, no hands. The other person, I guess she's more comfortable on the lands. I asked her if she's allowed to touch them. She said, there's nobody here to ask. I'm like, I'm asking. But I asked whose bees they were, and they weren't hers. They were somebody else. So we went over. It was nice of her to take us on a walk to look and to discover that. That was nice. I mean, it's the small gestures with him that I'm trying to figure out in this modern society how he's supposed to, where he fits in, and how he's supposed to, because it just, I was said to the man at the table, who goes by a nickname that my grandfather used to go by. I said, I find this world so difficult. I said, where I grew up, it was one set of circumstances. I was like, and then I saw, I made a change to Catholic school, because the clothing became difficult. I don't know what to wear to school every day. Linda stopped buying things from the Gap. She switched to t-shirts and jeans. I look so sloppy. I hated it. So we moved to Catholic school where at least they offered a uniform and it was the same thing every day. So there was no thought put into the wardrobe. You just looked sharp, which I really liked. And then I even said to him, I said, there was boundaries, there was guidelines, there was boundaries, there was expectations, there was detention if you didn't follow the rules. It was like heaven. It was like put on autopilot. It was like you just knew where you're allowed to be, where you're allowed to go, how far you can push something, when to push back. I mean, it was really nice to have some guidelines and some boundaries. I find this new world where there's none of that, which is what I came from before I went to the Catholic institution, just for 2 years of education. I liked the Catholic school. They took me on a bus to the cloisters. We went on a field trip. I barely remember that too, but I knew that it felt like a monastery. There was such peace being amongst that very genteel type. I don't know. There was something that was really nice and familiar about that. I just don't like being it's like wandering. It's like constant wandering. I mean, for lack of a better term, like wandering in the desert, except there's water, but you can't really drink the water or bathe in it because it's causing all sorts of health risks. And is it the water? Is it not the water? Is it the bottled water? Are the bottled water coming from the taps and they're just putting labels on it? There's no real answers. It's crapshoots. And I can see my health and my beauty just deteriorating in front of my own eyes. It's horrible. I mean, this is not, I don't want anybody to have to live this way. But so it is a different Episcopalian ambiance in the locals. I don't know. Again, I saw at that Episcopalian whatever. I met the woman who works in Nassau County I asked her what she did. She told me it sounded like something that really would have been, I didn't even know it was a career path again. When I was in public school, it was like you got the schedule. You didn't really know what the words meant, like a science. What does that mean? A history, a his story, a high story. What does that mean? Some of they had technology, but it was woodworking. It was working with your hands and woodcraft, which of course, breathing in dust particles was not my thing. Then there's home economics at that point, but it wasn't like making a career of it. It was making muffins, like one recipe, real simple, one bowl type of a thing. I mean, it really was, it was a try, which on the one hand, I'm very grateful for, today in Doxology. I'm grateful for whatever safety they were able to bestow, and having some semblance, I guess, of community at the time, because after school they'd all disappear and go to whatever activities or whatever their parents had in whatever they'd be doing for the rest of their lives. I do not have such luxuries. Hence this constant wandering. And Linda's watching this TV show called The Partner. It's episode 6, Client Relations. And I didn't even realize, because I'm not in law. The lawyers or attorneys that I've met have only been for transactional real estate. I never think of it like partners in a law firm. I don't know how that works. I have no idea. Words in a construct. Then I remember when Alexander was first born and we were forced to come back to New York, sell the house in Virginia and come back to New York, which I didn't want. But I didn't have money. I couldn't afford it by myself. Down in Virginia, somebody said, "Why don't you come live with me? My uncle is an admiral." I didn't know what that meant. I should have. I mean, I would have, but I would have felt like such an imposition. And I think I told her that. I was like, "You don't even know me." I said, "I'm a stranger to you." And she says, "I know." She says, "But my family doesn't work. My family, we're different." And I was like, and at the time, I didn't know what that meant. Just so lost for even like one anchor. So, and then coming back here and whatever they were setting up in security for Alexander entering school in pre-K, based on whatever zip code I was in at the time. I know Lou had just purchased some kind of laundromat in Sayville. I was working there because I didn't have a career. I was trying to figure out a way to support myself and the kids and not be with Jay. I hated coming back to New York. I hated being back in his company. I hated having to look at him every day. I used to say it's like he walks in the room and he just takes all the air away. He takes all the air out of the room. It's horrible. So, I was in Sayville. I had to go to Washington Mutual a couple of times because that's whatever. And I ran into somebody there who was very randomly wanted to see Alexander, which should have been like a strange occurrence, but it's felt so familiar. I don't know why. In the middle of this ordinary, what's become ordinary. So I really don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I need him, Anthony, to learn how to be some form of, fellowship is one word, community is another, but to have a multifaceted and in-depth way of thinking about things and different anchors of reality to base his future and balance it out like I'm doing right now. I have absolutely nothing. Only thing I have are some grapple points of whatever help there was at one point in my life that I didn't realize it at the time. I have like these grapples in some like Bastille fortress, and like one 550 tinsel rope that I am just desperately clinging onto. and trying to make sense of where and what happened to make New York look and sound this way. I remember getting a phone call after the bank run in with, I don't know who, some stranger, but he knew, I guess, or planned to be there. He knew who we were, I suppose. I told that, by the way, whoever in whatever Washington Mutual that no longer stands, it's now Chase, they got absorbed in. But they told me when they called on the phone I was partner. I didn't know what that meant. I go, what does that mean? Some man was mad because he was a sir. I didn't know what that meant. I said, I really apologize. In this day and age where I live, I don't know the etiquette on how to use the word sir. I don't know who is deserving of that, or when you meet them, I can't tell the difference. It seems like one blur. It's like watching a Disney movie and knowing how I should react, but none of the field operations look anything like a Disney movie any longer. I mean, maybe the Aladdin movie, it looks a lot like that at times, but it does in some bizarre way, outdoor bizarre way. But it no longer looks like a Disney princess movie with like Ariel and Prince Eric and the like King Poseidon and the Atlas sisters of Ariel. I mean, that Disney movie that I want to live in does not seem to exist in my day-to-day, but whereabouts. It really feels like I've moved into an Aladdin bazaar, outdoor bazaar, and I don't know who is who at any and all gates, and why I'm stuck, and why, like, Prince Eric couldn't take me to, like, King Neptune, Prince Eric to King Neptune, in order to atlas the correct way in nautical and aerial. Again, there's significance in these words. So that phone call was interesting. That had something to do with ancestry when they first started doing that. They were asking me about Facebook. I didn't know what that was. I was like, now why would I want to go on this thing and put pictures of myself and my kids on there? They were like, oh, well, because some of your relatives might want to know how your kids are or what's going on with them. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I guess. Again, so I don't know. And then they're talking about this, and I'm watching. It's this weird mixed cast of lawyers, or what they're saying is lawyers, and then they make this partner. Again, this is like a totally foreign concept to me. I mean, never been offered, never been talked about. I don't live in that world of that level of law. So I don't know how that works. I'd even I'm listening to this. They're calling now King Charles III, and Camilla, who's his wife, they call her Queen Consort. I'm trying to figure out that word. If it's a nice word, or I think it's a nice word. I mean, again, I met Ian once, IAN, at Hofstra. He said something about he's in charge of consortium. I didn't know what that meant. Then again, he was from a shire in a land far, far away, I suppose, because those words don't even make sense in my world. And it wasn't really definable. I suppose if I'm speaking outdoor bazaar in this Aladdin version of Disney Princess, it just mean menagerie. Menagerie. That was one of the words from that movie. Just so there's like some kind of construct of who uses what vernacular and for what purpose. So anyway, so I said Cathars at this outdoor grouping. I met the Sunday school teacher, Regina. She seems very nice. I signed Anthony up, Anthony the Third. Mentioned something about Cathars. I couldn't remember what the real definition was. I had gotten a Catholic version of Cathars from a nun who seemed very angry at me when I entered the class as a Protestant. I was like, and I even said to her in that class in ninth grade, I'm like, it felt very Interview with a Vampire, I have to be honest, me being the vampire and totally thrown off guard. Like, it felt very Hollywood. I'm like sitting in the class and I'm like, you're picking me out of the, I'm like, and then she said that she had to take special classes and prepare, knowing that I was on the roster, how to prepare for a Protestant being in Catholic school. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, which is why I'm here. And so that was interesting. She mentioned something about Cathar. I now asked Google, I'm like, what's this? Google, I'm sorry, Alexa, what does Cathar mean? Alexa, what does Cathar mean?
Cathar usually refers to in medieval Europe, a member of any of several rigorously ascetic Christian sects maintaining a dualistic theology.
So, then I met with a different one of the teachers. She says that they don't do background checks in order, and I'm like, in the church, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, background checks to get in a joint? I mean, I guess in one sense of national security, that's a good idea, but they'd have a really hard time passing national inspections based on accepting grants and money in an Episcopalian Zion, whatever, Hallow, and IHS being whatever IHS is, and what is currently skulking about in however that works. Because then that with audit would be really hard to explain to the, and then they said, I said, now in here, I was like, I was sitting down and I was reading through it and my ears perked up because in this Nicene Creed, it does say one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. I was like, now do tell, Sunday school teacher, what does that mean, pray tell? And she said that it means because she didn't know, but she had asked, what it means is something along the lines of a universal, like they use Catholicism as like a universal. And I'm like, right, so they set precedence, I suppose, is what that means, with some form of whatever. I'm like, interesting. I'm like, all right. So, again, I also told this man, goes by my grandfather's same nickname, because I'm assuming it's something Legion related. I said to him, I told him about Alexander. I said, I'm the mother, again, celestial body. I'm mother of nature, and I had a child. That's the hands of time. I said, he and I share the same birthday. I birthed my star into another. And so I said, I am like mother of time, and I hold the hands of time. He kind of smiled at that. We left that go. But I did make myself known that I am there for altruistic purposes. And I've been very hurt in these lands. Hellhounds, Hell's Angels, whatever's going on between hobbits, dwarves, and elves, in a Tolkien's token memoir of vice and verse, I guess to customize as one needs in order to explain their one situation, not to upset anyone else and not for anybody else to get in somebody else's shoes, because I, at this point, need to figure out where I was thrown off guard or off kilter and how to get back to where I need to be and with whom I need to be at St. Nicholas, Nicola, Nikita. There's several ways. La Femme Nikita. So that's how I spent my Sunday at church, at the church social, meeting the congregation, thanking them for being so kind and for letting us join them, even for the whatever and whatever I need as far as Cathar goes between this public school of I'm very concerned and this needing some fellowship at Sunday school for some direction. I said, how does one, because the Sunday school teacher said she was a Catholic, grew up that way, didn't know anything. And again, I don't really know. Like, I know Lou was a Catholic, but they didn't make it like a big thing in my house. So that got confusing. We just were. Grandma was Ireland Protestant. Louis was Roman Catholic. And I was just lost in a sea of, I just want a nice fellow to marry, and whatever it is that he comes from is what I will then become as far as interests and interesting. But having to do this modern society by myself has been very dangerous and has not been fun and has not been anything that I would wish upon any of my own ancestors going forward or any of my children going forward, that's for sure. There's got to be this happy medium somewhere. I just don't know how to strike that balance. I told Zelda that we went to the Vanderbilt and we spent the day there until there was a private event and we had to leave, and just how nice it was to be with Linda Lewis and my son, and to go from like the history of the ancestors in these lands, their personal house tour, which was small. It was not like the Biltmore Vanderbilt Estate. It was a much more humble estate, meant for such. It was more where I felt comforted. There was something about the monasteries and preserving and recycling some of the monasteries that were being whatever in Europe and bringing them here. And she told us the invented history of the estate, the family estate of the Vanderbilt, Cornelius, which is the one that was in that, which again, and then there were portraits and paintings there that tied in the visualization of what they looked like at the time. There's some of their personal family history that was there, some artifacts that were there, some symbology throughout, again, to keep an eye out for, which I did. Of course, Visigoth, and then there's the Goth, and I'm like, I'm thinking to myself now, in German it's the Goat. Here they say goat, G-O-A-T, but there's the G-O-T. It's more of like a Game of Thrones reference at this point for House of Dragons, I guess. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. And then, of course, I called my 3 children who don't answer. I mean, they didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to have had them this way. But I never held it against them. I just kept myself quiet and shut off from whatever their entrance was and made them the most important focal point of whatever I could say to them. I did, in being interested in them and not trying to show so much interest in myself. I left the house, I did my work, whatever my work was. I came home and I was all about them. That's how I preferred it. But I miss having their company. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.